Chapter 207. Ninth layer perfection. Having been given the cold shoulder, Yu Shuquang did not become angry. Instead, he admired Li Qingshan even more. 100 search rope entered the station quickly bullet-wide. He had already learned from Yu Zijian that the silly bird who had flown in and out was actually a 6th layer Qi practitioner. Back then, he had only returned to his senses after being surprised for quite a while. Just what kind of concept was a 6th layer Qi practitioner? It had completely exceeded his imagination. He had heard that with just a thought, a flying sword could circle around, and a first-rate master like him would be beheaded. However, someone like that had not even managed to withstand a single strike from Li Qingshan before being tossed out. He did not even dare to look back as he wondered inside. Just how did Li Qingshan train at such a young age? Was he the illegitimate child of some large clan? Or was he a secret disciple of some cultivation sect? His thoughts ran wild, but he was still unable to get to the bottom of it. All he knew was how fortunate he was to be able to establish a relationship with such an important figure. "Father, I just find that great hero you rather familiar. I feel like I've seen him somewhere before." Yu Zijian's face heated up slightly as she said that. However, Yu Shuquang was surprised. He smiled dryly. "How's that possible? It must be your imagination." Li Qingshan had specially reminded him that he could not let Yu Zijian learn about his true identity. How could he disobey him now? Yu Zijian frowned. "Really?" Yu Shuquang suddenly said, "Let's go see your mother." What happened yesterday had stirred up the matters that had lain dormant in his heart for many years. He had thought of this since then. However, he only saw off all the guests late into the night yesterday, brushing off all the curious gazes. Yu Zijian gave a gentle response of agreement. Stepping through the snow, the two of them arrived in the east of the city. At the foot of a beautiful hill was a small grave. It was extremely clean, and fresh offerings were placed on the grave. This was obviously Yu Shuquang's arrangement. But today, a person knelt before the grave with a straight back. His magnificent, silk robes had been reduced to a mess by mud and blood, but he did not seem to sense it at all. "Ma Chaochuan." Yu Shuquang frowned. As it turned out, he had not left. How did he find out about this place? Yu Zijian gripped the hilt of her sword and secretly raised her guard. Even she had failed to realize that she was very different from before today. Ma Chaochuan turned around stiffly. His face was pale and his lips were dark. Only when he saw Yu Zijian did his eyes light up. He murmured, "Lil." Although the golden crescent slash had avoided his vitals, it had still severely injured him. He didn't go to treat his injuries, only wanting to die here. Pop-up gallery full text TT download. Yu Zijian said frantically, "I'm not Z. You better go heal. If this continues, you'll die." Although she was enlightened, no change could be made overnight. The kindness in her heart would not disappear. When Ma Chaochuan saw it clearly, he smiled self-deprecatingly. Years of hatred had vanished in an instant, and he no longer had the strength to continue living. Yu Shuquang said coldly, "If you want to die, die somewhere else. Don't die here." Ma Chaochuan's gaze turned cold as he pressed down on his saber hilt. Yu Zijian said, "Father." Yu Shuquang pushed Yu Zijian away and said furiously, "Why did she have to grow up with a piece of trash like you? You're looking to die." Ma Chaochuan drew his blade with a swish. His face surged with murderousness. Yu Zijian blocked Yu Shuquang's way and said anxiously, "Even now, you still don't understand? My mother doesn't want to see you like this. If you die and she learns about it in the afterlife, wouldn't she be sad all over again?" When Yu Zijian said that, it seemed to possess a wondrous charm. Ma Chaochuan was stunned. Yu Zijian persuaded him gently, "You have to live well. Only then will my mother be at ease." Ma Chaochuan slowly lowered his eyes. "Girl, you're right." Suddenly, he stabbed his thigh with a backhand motion before pulling it out casually. His face became even paler. Yu Zijian covered her mouth and cried out. All she heard was Ma Chaochuan say, "I said a lot of crazy things to you yesterday. Just treat this as my apology. Hee. Someone like me deserves to die in the first place for having lustful thoughts towards her, but I can't drag her down with me anymore. I'll just keep living." Yu Zijian knew that his intense personality could not be changed. She sighed gently. You might be different from others, but the goodness of a person's heart is even more important than their appearance. You'll definitely be able to find a woman who truly loves you. Ma Chaochuan only sneered. Which woman in this world didn't love a handsome man? With his current cultivation, there was no lack of beautiful women by his side. However, those women only liked his money and power. Other than her, no one else treated him with sincerity. Even if you really can't get over it, I've heard that there are many wondrous methods in the world of cultivation that can definitely heal your face. Ma Chaochuan's expression gradually underwent a wondrous change. A smear of light appeared in his eyes. Suddenly, he turned around and stared at the gravestone deeply, as if he wanted to engrave every single word into his heart. Afterwards, he limped off into the distance. Yu Zijian could not help but let out a sigh of relief. She smiled, knowing that her persuasion was effective. However, she failed to hear Ma Chaochuan murmur to himself, "There are many wondrous methods in the world of cultivation. There must be one that can save you." This tiny hope landed in his heart that had dried up from exhaustion and despair, but it was like planting a seed. He was only a member of the bottom rung of the cultivation world. Even if there were wondrous methods that could revive the dead, it was not something a mere second-layer Qi practitioner could come into contact with. However, the almost extreme obsession and unbelievable delusions of humans were also the source of their power. Yu Shuquang watched Ma Chaochuan's figure gradually grow further away. He was also desolate. He turned around and said to the tiny gravestone, "Do you see that? He's still alive. Don't be sad anymore." He thought of the woman's words again. Even if senior brother Ma is wrong about everything, he's always been extremely good to me. I can't let him down. He could not help but sigh gloomily. If only I hadn't been saved by you and had just died outside Salt Mountain City. Yu Zijian seemed to see through his thoughts. She said loudly, "Mother must have liked you, father. I believe she didn't marry you because she had no other choice." Yu Shuquang smiled and rubbed Yu Zijian's head. Perhaps, but she still can't overcome her own difficulties. Although she was no longer with him, she had left the best gift for him. He made up his mind that he had to ask Li Qingshan for the innate pill no matter what. He was not old yet. He could still take care of her. Thinking up to there, he suddenly said earnestly, "I've never been bold enough to tell you that many of the stories I've told you about my chivalrous deeds are fake." Yu Zijian was alarmed. She took a step back and stared at Yu Shuquang in disbelief. Yu Shuquang coughed gently to hide his awkwardness. "I just want to tell you that you can't be a good person in this world. You need to learn to be a little smarter and a little more bad." "You liar. I'm not a bad person. Just treat it as I'm begging you." "No." "Lie." Yu Shuquang said, "Even I, your father, would lie to you, so who wouldn't lie to you?" Yu Zijian was taken aback. Suddenly, she smiled mysteriously. "Father, I don't blame you anymore." Yu Zijian said seriously, "Although you've lied to me, it's so I can learn the path of chivalry. It's still a great thing." This time, it was Yu Shuquang's turn to be surprised. He knew his daughter the best. Since when could she think like that? Yu Zijian smiled complacently. "I want to be a good person." In the depths of the ground, flowers bloomed and butterflies danced in the sea of flowers. The large, stone platform flickered with a magnificent color. Li Qingshan shuddered all over. A cold, heavy spiritual qi directly rushed into the Feng Qi acupoint on the back of his head, pouring into his yin-yang heel meridian. His meridians that had originally been rather empty were now filled with pure spiritual qi of the world, such that he felt a slight prickling pain in his meridians. If it were not for the fact that his body was extremely tough as a demon, it was possible for all his meridians to be severed. He practiced the innate method of practicing qi instinctively in an attempt to convert the spiritual qi into true qi, but he failed. The amount of spiritual qi was just too tremendous, such that he was unable to circulate it easily. The prickling pain in his meridians grew more and more intense, but he was unable to sense it at all. At this moment, the spirit turtle's demon core began to revolve by itself, shining brightly as it absorbed the spiritual qi to its heart's content while suppressing the excess spiritual qi. Only then did the innate method of practicing qi finally begin to operate, refining the spiritual qi strand by strand and converting it into true qi. The Sumeru ring on his finger also constantly came into play, refining and purifying his true qi once more. The pure true qi surged like the tide. With each breath, it would grow at a terrifying rate. This rate completely surpassed the rate at which regular qi practitioners could cultivate by ingesting qi-gathering pills alone. A cultivator who could absorb the spiritual qi of the world as a qi practitioner, an extremely precious spiritual stone mine, and a Sumeru ring that only core formation cultivators had the right to possess. With the three of them combined, it was an extraordinary rate of cultivation. In less than 4 hours, Li Qingshan's body trembled once more. He had reached the 8th layer of the innate method of practicing qi. The flow of his true qi immediately sped up slightly, and the quantity increased by quite a lot too. However, he continued to cultivate. Time passed by bit. After who knew how long in the darkness, Li Qingshan opened his eyes again and looked inside himself. He discovered that he had finally reached the 9th layer of great perfection with the innate method of practicing qi. He had reached the peak of the 3rd layer. This was the first cultivation method he had completed. He felt a faint sense of satisfaction. He wanted to share this good news with others. Looking at Millipede beside him, he was still snoring away. He seemed extremely peaceful, as if he had put aside all his worries in his sleep. However, he never had anything on his mind in the first place. For once, Little An had curled up and fallen asleep as well. As it seemed, the spiritual stone mine was extremely beneficial to her. Li Qingshan did not want to alarm them. He raised his right hand and gazed at his huge, pitch-black hand. With every increase in strength, he would become more confident in controlling everything. If he used the cursive sword calligraphy to launch another sneak attack, he might actually be able to heavily injure a 9th layer qi practitioner. He would not have to transform to deal with many problems as a human. Chapter 208. This was extremely important. There were many times and many places in the human world that were unsuitable for him to transform into a demon. The stronger he was as a human, the more opportunities he could obtain justifiably. However, if he wanted to continue his cultivation, he needed to find a new cultivation method. He felt like as long as he had a qi practitioner method, he could immediately break through to the 4th layer and open his yang linking meridian. It was just a pity that he had not obtained any of the 5 great methods of practicing qi. He could only stop here for now and wait for the future. Within the proud sword hall, 2 rows of disciples stood to the left and right. They all stared straight ahead, their eyes filled with a hint of eagerness. The weather was extremely cold, but Yu Shuquang's forehead was covered in a layer of sweat. He leaned forward and said carefully, "Brother Lu, there really aren't any decent disciples in our proud sword manor that can catch your eye." The person who sat before Yu Shuquang was Lu Fengrui, who had visited a few days ago just now. He waved his hand arrogantly, and Yu Shuquang dismissed everyone. Lu Fengrui smiled. "That's not why I've come this time. Brother Yu, it's time for you to celebrate." "What's there to celebrate in my empty home?" Lu Fengrui said, "I've heard about what happened a few days ago. The Pheasants' Grace Mountain abused their power to bully others, wanting to steal Brother Yu's property. Fortunately, Brother Yu had the assistance of a master, but that's not a long-term plan. As a result, I specially pleaded with my master to allow the Proud Sword Manor to join the Green Vine Mountain's protection. From now on, anyone who provokes the Proud Sword Manor will be provoking the dignity of our Green Vine Mountain." Yu Shuquang was surprised. He had wished for this a long time ago. He wanted to place the Proud Sword Manor under the protection of a certain mountain. Although he would have an additional master above him, it was still better than the days when any qi practitioner could kick his ass. However, now that he had met Li Qingshan, and Yu Zijian was about to have a promising future, he was not particularly happy. However, he reacted quickly. He stood up and bowed. "Thank you for your kind words, Brother Lu." Lu Fengrui was very satisfied with Yu Shuquang's behavior. The Pheasant's Grace Mountain had actually extended their influence into the territory of the Green Vine Mountain, so the Green Vine Mountain obviously had to respond. He pursed his lips. That's only one of them. Brother, you will probably be even happier when you hear about the next one. May I ask what it is? I heard your daughter has already reached the innate realm, so Master has specially extended his grace and is willing to accept her into the Green Vine Mountain. I'll be taking her back to the mountain this time. Lu Fengrui was complacent inside. This was killing two birds with one stone. He was the one who came up with this. Not only could he consolidate the Green Vine's influence in the mortal world, but he could also recruit a disciple for the Green Vine Mountain. When Yu Shuquang heard that, he was probably so happy that he wanted to kneel down to him. Yu Shuquang said, "This? My son has already promised a good friend of the Hua family that he'll be attending the 100 schools of thought next year." Without waiting for him to finish, Lu Fengrui's face sank. He had never thought that not only would Yu Shuquang thank him, but he would also turn him down. Are you saying our Green Vine Mountain can't rival the 100 schools of thought? Or do you want to use the Hua family to scare me? How dare you? Then why don't you let your daughter come out to see me? Yu Shuquang could only order someone to summon Yu Zijian over. Yu Zijian immediately shook her head when she heard that. No, I've already agreed to Qinglu. Lu Fengrui saw Yu Zijian. His eyes lit up slightly, but his face remained sunken. My master never speaks so easily. However, there's no way he can take back what he said. You better consider it properly. I said I'm not willing, so I'm not willing. Yu Zijian said in annoyance. Ever since she saw Lu Fengrui the first time, she had disliked his pretentiousness and his sarcasm. Lu Fengrui's eyes turned cold. A mere first-layer Qi practitioner actually dared to defy him in public. He was looking to die. Yu Shuquang smiled apologetically at Lu Fengrui. Please wait a moment. As he pulled Yu Zijian towards the back, he needed Li Qingshan to make the decision. Lu Fengrui seemed to see through their thoughts. He still felt like his threat was not powerful enough, so he added, the Pheasant's Grace Mountain has already gathered people to deal with that Niu Juxia or whatever behind you, but we still stopped them. Just because an independent cultivator who came out of nowhere defeated a disciple of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, does he think he can contend with the entire sect? Yu Shuquang's heart skipped a beat. He pulled Yu Zijian to the back and immediately ordered people to search for Li Qingshan in the manor. Yu Zijian also looked forward to the tremendous figure descending from above, grabbing the person surnamed Lu outside, and tossing him outside as well. However, the news they received in the end was that Li Qingshan had already vanished. Yu Shuquang immediately sat down in the armed chair and sighed. What am I supposed to do? Yu Zijian experienced the sorrow of powerlessness once again. She gripped the hilt of her sword firmly. Father, I'll agree to him. Yu Shuquang said, how can you do that? At the very least, Yu Zijian would have Hua Qinglu to take care of her in the 100 schools of thought. The 100 schools of thought was a place of rules. Looking at how Lu Fengrui behaved, there probably was not a lot of love between fellow disciples on the Green Vine Mountain. Yu Zijian instead comforted Yu Shuquang. Don't worry. The Green Vine Mountain is not necessarily worse than the 100 schools of thought. Suddenly, she suppressed her voice. This is just a temporary solution. I'll write a letter to Qinglu. Perhaps she can help me. Yu Shuquang could not help but sigh. His daughter had truly grown up. He said helplessly, that's all we can do then. In the hall, Lu Fengrui smiled complacently. As long as what was done could not be undone, it would not be that easy for the Hua family to interfere with the matters of the sect. If the little girl obeyed obediently, then so be it. Otherwise, she would probably suffer a lot. The king has sent me to patrol the mountain. Li Qingshan's resonant voice echoed through the silent cavern. The king has sent me to patrol the mountain. Little and sat on Li Qingshan's neck and sang along with him. Patrol the southern mountain, patrol the northern mountain. Li Qingshan turned his head and sang at the top of his lungs. Patrol the southern mountain, patrol the northern mountain. Little and also turned his head and sang at the top of his lungs. You're wrong, you're wrong. Li Qingshan suddenly shook his head. He shook his head so much that Little and began to move with him. "What's wrong?" Little and tightened her grip around his neck and grabbed Li Qingshan's ear to maintain her balance. Li Qingshan said, "It should be the cave patrol." Little and thought about it. Fair enough. Li Qingshan had already been underground for half a month. He did not recklessly make Millipede fight the demon general. Instead, he carefully familiarized himself with the situation underground. He discovered that Millipede's territory was not just being invaded by the demon general. It was being invaded by all the nearby demon generals. Everyone else had a bunch of subordinates following their orders, but he was alone. Furthermore, he was not very smart. If he wasn't bullied, it would be unforgivable. Li Qingshan also gained a deeper understanding of the importance of territory. The underground world was basically a great treasure trove. Here, he could find spiritual veins and holy lands that were 10 times better than the zombie Daoists dwelling, spiritual springs that could rapidly recover true qi by drinking them, and various strange spiritual herbs. These lands of treasure were scattered across the crisscrossing caverns. Losing a portion of territory was losing a portion of resources. And the most important resources were all sorts of demons. Theoretically, all the demons in Millipede's territory had to listen to his commands. In exchange, Millipede would not eat them. However, Millipede lacked the skill and wisdom to lead. Even when he gave orders, the demons would only obey him on the surface. They would never show their support. As the saying went, in order to resist foreign aggression, one must first pacify the interior. Right now, Li Qingshan was going to visit these demons one by one. Chapter 209. Blackwater Salamander. Li Qingshan took out the underground mental map he had stolen from the zombie Daoist and unfurled it. This place had completely exceeded the range of the underground mental map. When he channeled his true qi into the mental map, it flashed, but it did not form an image. Instead, it was a blurry speck of light. Something had interfered with it. Little and said softly, "It must be because of the underground magnetic field." Li Qingshan said, "How did you know?" Little and said hesitantly, "I think I've read it somewhere before, but I can't remember where." Li Qingshan smiled. It must be a memory from the past. Otherwise, how could she forget which book it was with her memory? Little and immediately fell silent. She showed a rare hint of worry. She had no idea whether it was because of Millipede's spiritual stone bed or the fragrance of the blue iris. The memories in the depths of her mind surfaced bit by bit, bringing her illusionary dreams. Li Qingshan fell silent as well. He thought of the same place as her. It was her hometown in the distant south. She did not know where it was exactly. Perhaps it would suddenly jump into her mind at any time and pull her into the distance. He carried her down and cradled her in his arms like a doll. He stroked her smooth hair gently and kissed the red mole on her forehead gently. The fragrance of sandalwood lingered around his lips. "It's not a bad thing to be able to recover my memories. Tell me about the underground magnetic field. I've never heard Millipede mention this before." Little and nodded obediently and wrapped her arms around his neck. The underground magnetic field will affect the use of techniques and spiritual artifacts. The deeper you go, the greater the effect. Li Qingshan casually cast a simple technique. Sure enough, it was slightly more difficult to cast than it was above ground. This really was the home ground of demons. Although demons could use techniques like techniques, they basically relied on their powerful demon qi to force their way through. They did not have the delicate process of casting techniques like humans, so the effects were obviously negligible. So smart. Little and smiled faintly. There are also astral winds in the sky. The higher you go, the stronger they get. They can scatter the spiritual energy of the true qi and scatter the souls of people. Really? That's amazing. Also, heavenly flame-burning cloud. Li Qingshan listened to her with a smile as he moved forward. It was rare to hear her talk so much. They forgot the hidden troubles and enjoyed the moment together. Then they looked forward to the fact that there really was a banquet in the world that would never end, and it was prepared for them. Pop-up window full text TT download. In this dark underground, many of the methods of humans were useless. They could only rely on their instinctive sense of smell, hearing, sense of direction, and memory. The underground cavern was thousands of times more complicated than any maze in the world. No one could be sure where the path in front of them led to. When you were focused on going up and wanted to return to the surface, the cavern might suddenly curve downwards, or you might even run into a dead end. All of your plans would be for naught, and you would have to find a new path. Add to that the threat of demons hiding in the shadows. It was enough to make 9th and 10th layer Qi practitioners tired and anxious, or even lost in the depths of the underground. The dangers here were terrifying, and it was not just about power. However, Li Qingshan was strolling around like it was his own backyard. His sensitive senses allowed him to easily find the path. As long as he released his powerful demon Qi, the other demons would be able to restrain themselves and not attack randomly. The most terrifying demon here, King Millipede, was his strong shield. However, he did not bring Millipede with him this time to suppress the other powerful demons. On the path of demons, the strong were revered. It was not as strict and orderly as the humans. The rule of a fox borrowing the tiger's might was not as effective in the world of demons as it was in the human world. If he could not display enough power, how could he make those arrogant demons submit to him, the commander of the demons? Apart from that, he had a deeper purpose. Li Qingshan advanced along the underground river with faint spiritual qi. The water gradually sank deeper into the ground. He dove into the water and swam forward with the current. An hour later, his field of vision suddenly widened. He saw an extremely wide body of water. He could not see the end of it, nor did he see the surface of the water. There was only the quiet ripples of the black water, as if there were black jade buried underground. When it came to the underground, normal people would naturally think of the boundless earth. Who would have thought that there would be such a rich water source underground? Li Qingshan thought, the person Millipede mentioned should be here. The spiritual qi in the black water was very dense. Although it was not as dense as Millipede's residence, it was still a rare holy land for cultivation. According to Li Qingshan's observations over the past few days, there was a spiritual vein underground. It was in this direction, so it was very likely that there were crystallized spiritual stones in the depths of the black water. He wanted to find the hidden demons. Of course, he was not going to look around randomly. Instead, he followed Millipede's description and the direction the spiritual vein took. All-powerful demons occupied places with dense spiritual qi. Li Qingshan got little and to wait on one side before letting out a deep roar. He completely transformed into his demon form. He had tiger claws, a tiger tail, ox hooves, and ox horns. His head of scarlet hair floated upwards like a ball of blazing fire. His figure had already reached a height of 9 meters. During this period of time, he had stopped practicing qi and focused on practicing the spirit turtle's method of qi suppression. He continued to eat the various pills and borrowed Millipede's bed to sleep a few times. His demon qi grew extremely rapidly, gradually suppressing the ox demon completely. Recovering his original appearance was no longer an issue. Afterwards, he immediately began practicing the second layer of the tiger demon. Practicing the tiger demon was not just about eating pills and cultivating silently. It required intense battles to unleash its potential and break through bottlenecks. As a result, he released his demon qi fearlessly and let out a provocative roar. At the bottom of the water, a pair of lantern-sized eyes suddenly lit up in the depths of the mud. They shone with a vicious light. With a swing of its huge tail, it pushed away the black mud. Its colossal body shot over 30 meters away nimbly, swimming straight towards Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan sensed a demon qi even more powerful than his own in the distance. Just like Millipede had said, this guy was very powerful. It was so powerful that even Millipede was unwilling to make trouble for it in the water. However, Millipede was of the fire element, while Li Qingshan was of the water element. The deep waters were also his home ground. With the spirit turtle's demon core, he moved no slower than he would on land. He sank to the bottom of the water, his hooves digging into the mud and stepping on the rocks. He stared ahead calmly. The demon qi grew closer and closer. He also vaguely made out a huge, vicious figure, as well as a pair of eye-catching demon eyes. The The demon must have seen the same thing. Before the demon had even approached him, the water surged over like a tsunami. Of course, this was not just a splash from its body. Instead, it was controlled by demon qi. Li Qingshan's expression remained the same. He did not even use the spirit turtle's profound shell to protect himself. The water surged and rumbled like an army charging towards the enemy, slamming into Li Qingshan viciously and producing a thunderous rumble at the bottom of the water. His fiery, scarlet hair suddenly swept backwards, but Li Qingshan's figure was like a pillar of support, unmoving. Even with the tremendous pressure on him, he did not even frown. The surging water produced countless tiny, white streams of turbulence across his body. A small, colorful fish was lifted up by the water against its will, slipping through one of the streams. Its body was immediately sliced cleanly apart. Even if it was as gentle as water, it could become a terrifying weapon as long as it was strengthened with sufficient speed and power. However, this was only a test and a demonstration. Seeing how its first test had failed, the black water demon did not rush over in a hurry. It watched on from afar. "It's my turn." Scarlet light flashed through Li Qingshan's eyes. He spread his arms and reached into the water like he was grabbing something extremely heavy. The spirit turtle's demon core revolved as its demon qi expanded to the limit. Suddenly, it pushed forward forcefully, and the water several meters around Li Qingshan suddenly emptied. Li Qingshan seemed to have lifted up a huge ball of water and smashed it towards the demon. The demon swung its tail and shattered the ball of water. It was like hundreds of tons had exploded at the bottom of the water, stirring up the entire lake. However, using water to deal with a demon of the same element obviously would not achieve anything. This was like how ferocious beasts would always roar at each other when they met in the wilderness to demonstrate their might. As if it had confirmed that Li Qingshan was an opponent on par with it, the black water demon swam over. This time, it did not cause any ripples. Wherever it swam, the black water would automatically part for it. It was so quiet that it seemed like it was sliding through space. Li Qingshan finally saw the demon's appearance. It was a salamander, but it had reached a terrifying length of 50 or 60 meters. Its smooth, sticky skin was pitch black like ink. As it swam through the water silently, it was like a ghost in the darkness. It actually possessed an indescribable sense of elegance. It was the ruler of this lake. The first subordinate that Li Qingshan wanted to recruit, the Blackwater Salamander. Two tremendous demon qi constantly clashed in the water. The Blackwater Salamander used the changes in the demon qi to communicate its intentions clearly. "Who are you? Why have you invaded my territory?" Of course, not all demons could speak the human language. However, every single demon had grasped a method of communication after constantly communicating with the spiritual qi of the world over the years. They used the pulses of demon qi to replace their roars. Although it was not as intricate as the human language, it was much simpler and clearer. Li Qingshan was a demon in the first place. After learning a little from Millipede, he comprehended this special method of communication for demons, so he obviously understood what the Blackwater Salamander was trying to say. Li Qingshan eased up slightly inside. Sure enough, powerful demons all possessed a certain level of intelligence. This Blackwater Salamander seemed to be even smarter than Millipede. Chapter 210. The Blackwater Salamander swam nimbly in the water and let out a mocking laugh. "Millipede? You're talking about that idiot. Only an idiot would follow his orders. You're an idiot, but I'm not. Sanctuary." Li Qingshan raised his tiger claws. "What if I say that you must obey me? If you catch me, I'll listen to you." "All right." This time, Li Qingshan actually roared. The tiger demon's killing roar followed, tearing a hole in the black water as it charged towards the Blackwater Salamander. The Blackwater Salamander actually didn't dodge. It allowed the tiger demon's killing roar to land on its body. The Blackwater Salamander slid away and turned to the bottom of the water, creating a huge hole. However, it didn't cause any damage to the salamander at all. The demonic aura once again let out a mocking laugh. "It doesn't hurt or tickle." Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. He could clearly see that just now, there was a layer of brilliance flowing around its body. This guy's innate divine ability seemed to be able to dodge spells. No wonder it dared to let Li Qingshan catch it. The blackwater salamander twisted its body and spat out a water arrow, creating a sharp and strange whistling sound. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Li Qingshan. Although it wasn't as powerful as it was just now, it was a true killing move. It could easily pierce through metal and stone. Li Qingshan also dodged. The water arrow arrived before him, but it was blocked by a blue barrier of light. It was the spirit turtle's profound shell. It's neither painful nor itchy. He eased up slightly. The blackwater salamander's cultivation was not low, but its attacks were mainly water-type techniques. It would struggle to get through his spirit turtle's profound shell that was also of the water element. However, even if there were 4 or 5 9th-level Qi warriors like Grandma Shiman, fighting the blackwater salamanders in the deep water would only result in death. Although this guy wasn't a demon general, once he had the terrain advantage, he was extremely difficult to deal with. Seeing that its attack didn't work, the blackwater salamander was shocked. It took another deep breath of water and spat out thousands of water arrows. The arrows pierced through the black water, leaving a straight white trail. Like torrential rain striking glass, the spirit turtle's profound framework trembled gently as if it could shatter at any time. However, despite the rain of water arrows, it remained there firmly, without leaving behind a single mark. Holy Church Li Qingshan felt his demon qi rapidly deplete. He knew that the spirit turtle's profound theory could not be directly destroyed, but it still required demon qi. There was no benefit in dragging it out any longer. Stepping off the bottom of the lake, he shot off into the air like a rocket. When the blackwater salamander saw Li Qingshan pouncing towards it, it opened its huge mouth, revealing its eerie white teeth, and bit towards Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan thrust his head forward, as if he wanted to let go of his head in the salamander's mouth. However, the 2 extremely sharp horns stopped the salamander from biting down on Li Qingshan's shoulder. The 2 behemoths tangled with each other. The black water surged and demon qi filled the air. Li Qingshan felt pain in his shoulder. The sharp teeth of the blackwater salamander had already pierced into his skin, but he did not care at all. He wrapped his arms around the blackwater salamander and dragged it towards the bottom of the lake. Although he was a water-type demon, he was used to living on land after all. He was not as agile as the blackwater salamander in the water. However, as long as his feet touched the ground, he would be able to use his strength to suppress the blackwater salamander. Originally, the blackwater salamander wanted to tear off a piece of flesh from Li Qingshan's shoulder, but it seemed to have bitten into extremely tough leather. It wanted to move its neck, but it was hugged tightly, unable to break free. It became even more shocked. His demon qi was not as great as his, but why was his strength greater than his? Although the black water was deep, it was still not the ocean. Li Qingshan's 3 zhang tall figure was enough to traverse most of the water. In an instant, his iron hooves once again reached the bottom of the lake. With a wild roar, he threw the blackwater salamander to the ground. He had succeeded in his plan. I won. An oily light flashed across the blackwater salamander's pitch-black skin. Li Qingshan felt something slip from his arms. The blackwater salamander slid out like a ghost. Even his barbed tiger claws could not catch it. You can't catch me. The blackwater salamander mocked as it disappeared in front of Li Qingshan like lightning. Li Qingshan thought, this fellow's innate ability is indeed extremely difficult to deal with. No wonder it did not take Demon General Millipede seriously. Although its attack power is not strong, it is still extremely difficult for others to deal with it in the water. But this was his first battle. How could he give up? He also shot out and chased after the demonic aura. The demonic aura suddenly disappeared. The ripples in the surrounding water grew more and more intense. White waves rolled in the black water, turning the depths of the ground into a world of black and white. Without any warning, and without feeling the ripples in the water, a black shadow suddenly appeared behind Li Qingshan and slammed into his waist. Li Qingshan felt a pain in his waist and lost his balance. From the corner of his eye, he saw the blackwater salamander disappear into the water again. Before he could stabilize himself, the blackwater salamander changed direction and slammed into him again. The blackwater salamander drew out countless pitch-black trails, intersecting with Li Qingshan's body. In an instant, Li Qingshan did not know how many times he had been slammed into. He spun around in the water, feeling dizzy. It was as if he had become the blackwater salamander's toy. His entire body was in pain. It was only thanks to his strong body that he had not been slammed to death. A top-level demon was indeed difficult to deal with. However, he did not become dejected at all. Instead, his battle intent burned brighter and brighter. He did not use the spirit turtle's profound shell, as his demon chi was nowhere close to the blackwater salamanders in the first place. If he used the spirit turtle's profound shell, his demon chi would probably run out very quickly. He could only retreat temporarily. However, why would he retreat? He did not get Little and to help him, not because he wanted Little and to hide to one side and launch a sneak attack. Instead, he treated this as a test for himself. This was not a battle to the death where he would resort to every conceivable means. Instead, he was trying to subdue a demon weapon. As a result, not only did he have to win this battle, but he had to win it fair and square. The difference in strength between them was not particularly great. Apart from the slightly weaker demon chi, his strength and abilities even surpassed it. The reason why he could not gain the upper hand was definitely because he had not done enough. Li Qingshan just closed his eyes and was slammed into a few more times by the blackwater salamander viciously. Amidst the great waves, the depths of his heart calmed down instead. It was like a droplet of water had fallen into his heart. Li Qingshan's heart suddenly lit up. It was water. Although he was a water-type demon, he was not good at fighting in water. His method of controlling the water was extremely clumsy as well. He did not make good use of the environment at all, giving the blackwater salamander a geographical advantage for nothing. He floated and sank in the water, no longer trying to control his body. He no longer tried to land on the ground. He was like a creature born in the water, treating the water as his home. His demon chi scattered in the surroundings, forming a connection with the surrounding water. He was no longer as clumsy as when he picked up a huge water ball and smashed it at people. Instead, he monitored the surrounding waters with the sensitivity of a radar. The blackwater salamander broke through the water once again, like a black, ghostly bolt of lightning. Although it did not cause any ripples, it did touch the water under Li Qingshan's control. "It's behind me!" Li Qingshan suddenly turned his head, but his movements were not as agile as the blackwater salamander. At such a close distance, even if he discovered it, it would be hard for him to dodge. The blackwater salamander was proud of itself. Just as it was about to slam Li Qingshan around again, Li Qingshan's huge body suddenly moved to the left without any warning. Li Qingshan controlled the water and pushed it away, avoiding the blackwater salamander's attack for the first time. At this moment, he finally felt like he was a little like a demon in the water. When he sensed the blackwater salamander's movement, he clenched his fist, and the moment the blackwater salamander brushed past him, he ruthlessly smashed the blackwater salamander's head. With a loud bang, the water turned into waves and spread across the entire body of water. The furious attack that Li Qingshan had prepared for a long time was not a joke. Even if it was a tough rock or iron, it would still be smashed flat. Just when he was considering if he had used too much force. Ouch, ouch, ouch. The blackwater salamander hugged its head with its two forelimbs and swam far away while swinging its long tail. In that instant, it also used the ability to slide away from the attack, dissipating most of the force. Only then did it not get knocked unconscious by Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan floated in the water with his head and feet above his head. Looking at the blackwater salamander, his demon chi fluctuated. "You still don't want to admit defeat? Did you catch me?" The blackwater salamander was furious and actually swam far away. "Even if I can't beat you, don't even think of catching me and making me listen to your commands." Li Qingshan raised his thick eyebrows and adjusted his body. He leaned his body forward and struck a freestyle swimming pose. His four limbs suddenly pushed back, and then he controlled the water waves to push himself forward, rushing towards the blackwater salamander. In terms of swimming, how could the blackwater salamander lose to Li Qingshan? With a wave of its tail, it swam 3 to 4 meters to the side. No matter how it swam, it couldn't compare to its natural agility. Just as it was about to mock Li Qingshan a few more times, it suddenly felt its tail tighten. Li Qingshan had grabbed onto its tail, but its tail was the most slippery to begin with. With a flash of light, it instantly escaped far away, not daring to stay any longer. In the extremely vast underground lake, 2 enormous creatures, one fiercely chasing and the other frantically escaping. Even though the Blackwater Salamander had nowhere to hide, Li Qingshan was still not fast enough. He couldn't even touch its tail. After 3 days and 3 nights, their speed was as slow as an ordinary fish. They were both exhausted, but they still refused to listen to the drama. Li Qingshan felt as if he had really become a fish. He had a new understanding of how to use his body to paddle water and how to control the flow of water. To him, water battles were no longer a weakness. Even though he was exhausted, he relied on his ox-like endurance to forcefully hang on to the Blackwater Salamander, not giving it any time to rest. The Blackwater Salamander gritted its teeth in hatred and scolded Li Qingshan. Suddenly, its eyes lit up. A ball of fluctuating flowing fire was quietly burning in the water. Within the flowing fire sat a small skeleton. She also imitated the monsters and used her breath to convey her meaning clearly. Why don't we just kill it and take out its demon core to eat? Beside her, 2 huge skulls opened and closed their mouths, as if they were waiting for a meal to be served. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. Don't eat me, I will explode my Yao core. The Blackwater Salamander instinctively felt a dangerous aura. It knew that it couldn't pass this hurdle. It was dispirited, but it also admired Li Qingshan's perseverance. Chapter 211. The Blackwater Salamander had been wondering what kind of monster Li Qingshan was. Holy Church, Li Qingshan said, "You're the thing." He swung his fist down. Even though the Blackwater Salamander was exhausted, it was still agile and dodged. Li Qingshan glared at it. You dare to dodge when the leader hits you? Do you want to live or not? Little Anne's 2 skulls threatened it. The Blackwater Salamander had no choice but to go forward and hit Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan heaved a sigh of relief and sat down on the ground. He looked at his number 1 soldier in satisfaction. He didn't expect that he would become a leader in the Demon Dao before he even became a Black Wolf commander. Moreover, the people he led were all top-notch powerful monsters. The Blackwater Salamander's strength, according to human qi refinement standards, was around the 9th or 10th layer. It wasn't far from becoming a demon general. If Li Qingshan's strength was calculated according to qi refinement standards, it would already be amazing if he could reach the 7th or 8th layer. He was still very far away from becoming a demon general. It couldn't be helped. Demon cultivation was extremely time-consuming. Being able to reach this level was already a great help from those pills. This victory was completely due to the 3 powerful divine abilities. Seeing that there was no danger, the Blackwater Salamander stopped to rest. It carefully looked at Little Anne and said, "Leader, that millipede," Li Qingshan said, "call him King." The Blackwater Salamander said, "Why did King Millipede want you to beat me up?" Li Qingshan said, "Not just you. I want to beat up all the monsters on the ground. If they listen to my orders, then I'll let them go. If they don't, then I'll kill them all." Although the Blackwater Salamander wasn't the strongest monster on the ground, it was the most difficult to deal with. Millipede didn't want to go deep into the water. Even if he did, it wouldn't be easy to subdue him. That was why Li Qingshan made it his first target. The Blackwater Salamander glanced at Little Anne. "Leader, this is?" Li Qingshan said, "This is the deputy leader." The flames in Little Anne's eye sockets flickered. He had actually become the deputy leader. Holy Church, Li Qingshan said, "Do you know where King Millipede's cave is?" I know. On this piece of land, as long as it was a demon with a bit of intelligence, it would probably know." Li Qingshan said, "All right, I will be holding a meeting there in 3 months. At that time, if you dare to not show up, you can forget about staying in this Blackwater lake." He didn't just want to defeat all these demons and subdue them one by one. His most fundamental goal was to turn them into a fighting force that he could deploy. That was why he and Millipede had come up with this demon gathering, gathering all the demons who had condensed Yao cores. The Blackwater Salamander had no choice but to agree. With a thought, Li Qingshan took out an uneaten roasted chicken from his 100 treasures pouch and tossed it to the Blackwater Salamander. The Blackwater Salamander swallowed it in one gulp. The taste of the various seasonings, especially the salt, melted in its mouth. It excitedly swam around Li Qingshan and stared at Li Qingshan. "Leader, do you have any more?" Li Qingshan thought to himself, just as I expected. Although this underground place was a huge treasure trove with all sorts of spirit veins and spirit herbs, the food resources here were far less abundant than those on the surface. However, the food resources here were far less abundant than on the surface. Even a demon general like Millipede could not eat whatever he wanted, much less these ordinary demons. Although they wouldn't die even if they didn't eat for 10 years as long as they breathed in the spiritual energy of the world in this black water, their instincts wouldn't disappear. The carrot and the stick had always been the only way to keep his subordinates in check. Li Qingshan used it appropriately, and it had a miraculous effect. When you go, you can eat as much of this as you want." "I will definitely go. I will definitely go." The Blackwater Salamander instantly looked forward to it. If it could eat this every day, it wouldn't mind becoming a demon soldier. Li Qingshan and Little and left the Blackwater and ate a 100-herb pill to recover most of their demon chi. Only then did he ask Little and curiously, "How did you become like this again?" Little and explained. So it was to hide her identity. The Holy Church and the others would eventually return to the surface. If she remained like this, too many pairs of eyes would remember her underground. Who knew when Li Qingshan's identity would be exposed? Furthermore, in this underground world, a non-human appearance was actually more convenient than a human appearance. Li Qingshan was quite impressed with Little N's caution. The human world and the demon world might not always overlap. There was nothing wrong with being more careful. They could communicate through aura anyway. Little Anne's aura was the rising flames in her body. Let's go to the next place. Outside Salt Mountain City, in the garden behind the Silent Manor. Li Qingshan looked at the light above his head and felt dizzy. He turned to Millipede and said, "I'll go prepare some food and wine for the guests. You can go back first." Millipede left reluctantly. Li Qingshan brought Little Anne to the surface and saw that it was a vast expanse of snow. Snow covered the ground and the distant mountains. Clearly, it had snowed a few more times while he was away. Li Qingshan felt at ease. He exchanged a smile with Little Anne beside him. This expedition against the demons was much smoother than Li Qingshan had imagined. Apart from the tough Blackwater Salamander, there were also a few powerful demons. One of them was a 30-meter-long boulder viper. It was even more powerful than the Blackwater Salamander. It had almost completely replaced its body with stone, making it invulnerable. Furthermore, it had melded into the ground and concealed its aura. Its sudden ambush had almost injured Li Qingshan. However, when Li Qingshan stated his intentions, the boulder viper immediately expressed its willingness to obey Millipede's orders and participate in the demon gathering. The Blackwater Salamander only dared to look down on Millipede because of its geographical advantage. However, even the boulder viper did not dare to face a demon general head-on. Thus, Li Qingshan did not even bring out the carrot or the stick to recruit a second powerful demon soldier. As long as the king had absolute strength, it was easy for the generals who went out to battle. Although there were a few battles, they were mostly close calls. Of course, this was also because Li Qingshan was strong enough. Otherwise, he would have died many times over. Although the strongest demons were afraid of Millipede's strength, they still had to test the waters against Li Qingshan, the leader of the demon soldiers. The boulder viper had submitted so quickly because its ambush on Li Qingshan had failed. Instead, Li Qingshan had cracked the stone on its body with a punch. Although Li Qingshan did not dare to say that he had more than a 50% chance of winning in a fight to the death, no demon would fight a demon of the same level for no reason. Everyone thought that humans were intelligent and rational, while demons were bloodthirsty and crazy. However, this was not the case. Wild beasts in the wilderness would not fight to the death with their opponents even if they were fighting for a mate or territory. The loser would not even suffer too much damage. Often, they would use their roars to intimidate their opponents and determine the victor. However, humans would often gamble their lives for women and power. Even if they knew that they were no match for the demon, they would still fight. In the end, they would die without repentance. Sometimes, a small conflict would escalate from insults to fights, and then to fights to the death. It was all for the sake of an illusory dignity. Wild beasts only had survival instincts. They did not have complex emotions like humans. This did not change after they became demons. As a result, Li Qingshan faced a group of extraordinarily rational opponents. Even the powerful demons obeyed him, much less the weaker ones. Almost as soon as Li Qingshan released his demon aura, the lesser demons bowed their heads. It was so simple that even Li Qingshan did not expect it to be so simple. It had only taken him a month, which was far less than he had expected. Millipede was too stupid and easily tricked. He also did not have the awareness to gather his subordinates, which was why he was where he was today. When Li Qingshan made up for Millipede's lack of intelligence, he immediately gained control over the territory. With that, Li Qingshan basically gained several dozen demon soldiers under his command. Only then did his identity as the leader of the demon soldiers become real. Once the demon gathering was over and he established his rule, he could mobilize these demon soldiers. He also had a demon general like Millipede as a friend. If the sect still wanted to deal with him, they would just be digging their own graves. As long as they had not undergone the heavenly tribulation, he could deal with them no matter how many came. Even if the sect master ventured underground, he would have to taste the power of a carapace demon general. With a beautiful vision for the future, Li Qingshan put on his large, conical hat again and carried the bamboo basket on his back. He let little and in. Although he could return to his normal state, he purposefully maintained his huge figure so that it would be easier for him to move about in the human world. In order to successfully hold the demon gathering this time, a grand banquet was necessary. This matter also fell on Yu Shuquang. In the proud sword manner, Yu Shuquang grabbed Li Qingshan's hand excitedly. "You finally returned." Li Qingshan saw how flustered Yu Shuquang was, so he asked in a hurry, "What happened?" Yu Shuquang told him the whole story, and Li Qingshan said furiously, "You've gone too far. Have you contacted Hua Qinglu?" Yu Shuquang said bitterly, "I've already sent the letter, but I haven't received a reply." Li Qingshan knew that even if Hua Qinglu had done something, it was impossible for her to specially reply and explain to Yu Shuquang. However, this probably would not be so simple. Even if Hua Qinglu wanted to, the Hua family might not necessarily fall out with the Green Vine Mountain over a friendship between children. He had already witnessed the arrogance and brutality of cultivation sects with his sect. They were even bold enough to kill Hawkwolf guards, let alone forcefully recruit a disciple. Yu Shuquang said, "What do we do now?" "Sigh, it's all because I'm useless as a father." Li Qingshan tried to persuade him, "You don't have to worry too much. She's going to become someone's disciple. At most, she'll suffer a little. She won't be in any danger. It's not a bad thing for her to experience the dangers of the world." The Green Vine Mountain was a proper sect after all, not a den of bandits. Yu Shuquang sighed heavily. That was what he said, but how could he stop worrying? Li Qingshan was rather worried as well. He liked Yu Zijian's straightforwardness and kindness very much. He did not want her to be bullied. Chapter 212. A bustling city deep in the mountains, Yu Shuquang was overjoyed. He clasped his hands deeply. "I'll do anything you ask of me." As long as Yu Zijian was safe, he was willing to do anything. Li Qingshan said, "Extend your hand." Yu Shuquang extended his hand in doubt. A pill that glistened like jade landed in his hand. Was it not the innate pill that he had been dreaming about? He was both surprised and overjoyed. He clasped his hands deeply again. "Thank you for your generous gift, Niu Juxia. May I ask what you want me to prepare?" Li Qingshan said, "Ingest the innate pill first and see if you can reach the innate realm and produce a sliver of true qi. We'll talk about anything else after that." Yu Shuquang immediately ingested the innate pill and sat down to meditate, refining the innate pill. If ordinary people ingested the innate pill, they might not even be able to practice qi. However, it was almost guaranteed for a first-rate master like him. The effects of the pill penetrated every inch of his body, fusing with his profound inner force. Gradually, a wondrous change occurred. The clumsy and heavy inner force gradually became nimble, as if it had broken free from the restraints of his body, extending outwards endlessly. A great sense of joy welled up in his heart. However, Yu Shuquang knew that this was the most important moment. He guarded his mind tightly to prevent himself from suffering from qi deviation. Li Qingshan sat to one side and took out the Buddhist scriptures that little and usually read from his 100 treasures pouch. A while later he felt his head spin. What emptiness? Namo? Namo? He had no idea at all. He had no idea just how her little head had grown to be so engrossed in something so boring. A while later, Yu Shuquang shuddered. Li Qingshan turned around and smiled. How's it? Yu Shuquang's body relaxed. He was exhausted, but he was unable to hide the joy on his face. This is equivalent to giving you a new life. Li Qingshan interrupted him. Let's skip the pleasantries. I've already said that if you work for me, I won't mistreat you. I have the innate method of practicing qi here. I can pass it on to you as well. With your profound inner force, reaching the second layer shouldn't be a problem. Yu Shuquang's mind was basically overwhelmed by the joy, but he was still experienced after all. He composed himself very soon and erased his joy. He knew that this great kindness could no longer be repaid with just a few words of thanks. He only waited quietly for Li Qingshan's orders. Li Qingshan passed on the innate method of practicing qi to him before tossing an empty 100 treasures pouch to Yu Shuquang. What I want you to do is fill this 100 treasures pouch with various types of alcohol, meat, and food before handing it to me. You have less than 2 months to do this, and I want you to keep a low profile. Yu Shuquang was mildly surprised. The mission that Li Qingshan had given him was just too simple. However, when he followed Li Qingshan's instructions and channeled his true qi into the 100 treasures pouch, he finally became stern. The 100 treasures pouch that Li Qingshan had given him originally belonged to Grandma Dongmen. The space inside was extremely vast, enough to rival several large warehouses. Filling it up would not be too easy, and he had to do it within 2 months. Just slaughtering livestock near Salt Mountain City would not be enough. If he brought it over from other places, he probably would not be able to make it in time, and it would create too great of a disturbance. However, Li Qingshan did not want to attract too much attention, which was why he helped Yu Shuquang become a qi practitioner. Then he would use his extremely vast reputation to complete this task, which would save Li Qingshan a lot of trouble. Yu Shuquang nodded. I definitely won't let you down. Although this mission was rather troublesome, it was not exactly dangerous. Collecting alcohol and meat would be 100 times easier than finding innate pills. Li Qingshan explained a few more details. After all, the tastes of demons were not completely the same as humans. As a matter of fact, many of them did not like cooked food. They preferred fresh, bloody food. Yu Shuquang committed everything to memory. Li Qingshan thought about how he had nothing else to tell him, so he picked up the bamboo basket, put on his bamboo hat, and made his way out. Suddenly, he stopped and said, "The path of cultivation is boundless. I wonder how much of the swordsman of the past still remains?" With that, he strode away, leaving Yu Shuquang standing where he was in a daze. He subconsciously touched the beard on his face. He had grown it when he swore he would never take a wife again. His gaze gradually became determined. Suddenly, he drew his sword, and it flashed past his face. At this moment, the gentle young man who often delivered food to Li Qingshan came in to greet him. Master, Nyo Juxia. However, he was stunned by Yu Shuquang's appearance. It was a handsome face. Although it had been sharpened by the passage of time, leaving behind many fine wrinkles, it added a sense of vicissitudes of charm. Seeing his disciple's shocked expression, he laughed a few times. Go get some wine for my farewell. His mood had never been so clear before, as if he had returned to his youth when he was a wandering swordsman who could ignore life and death. However, he was no longer young. He was no longer carefree and unrestrained. There was something called responsibility on him now. As a father, if he could not even protect his daughter, what was the point of living? Li Qingshan had already arrived outside the manor. He glanced back and smiled. Those who could become first-rate masters, regardless of whether they were good or bad, all they had was willpower. Yu Shuquang was one of the best among them, which was why he could establish the Proud Sword Manor. He needed a few people he could use to help him deal with some matters in the human world. People like that did not need to be too powerful, but they could not be too weak either. Perhaps they could only help him gather some food right now, but they would definitely benefit him even more in the future. He unfurled the mental map of the Green Province and slid the tip of his finger across it. With a thought, the image flickered. In the end, his finger stopped on a small, twisted mountain. The words Green Vine Mountain were written on the side. The twisting strokes turned into mountains that rose and fell, towering and precipitous. Snow-white clouds and mist floated between the mountains, giving it a sense of otherworldliness out of nowhere. What was even more wondrous was that within the encirclement of ice and snow-capped mountains, only this mountain remained lush with vegetation. It was verdant, like a verdant pearl on the white snow. Li Qingshan stood on the snow-capped mountain in the distance and gazed at this. He sighed in amazement at the wonders of the world. Although the formations of the Green Vine Mountain played some role, what truly made the mountain evergreen was the spiritual vein underground. Not only was this place close to Jiaping City, but it was even close to his hometown, Qinyang City. It sat on one of the branches of the boundless mountains. Of course, close was only in terms of Li Qingshan's current strength. Just the treacherous mountain path alone was enough to cut off the possibility of mortals reaching this place. Even if they managed to reach this place out of luck, there were many mysteries hidden within the mist. Not only would ordinary people not be able to climb up the mountain, but they probably would not even be able to see the mountain. Li Qingshan could see it, but he hesitated over how he should enter it. Was Yu Zijian somewhere on the mountain, currently suffering? Li Qingshan stood on the top of the mountain and pondered with a frown. With a stomp, true qi erupted from the bottom of his foot, kicking up a layer of snow. He had already leapt off the cliff. He had already locked onto a lone pine tree that grew horizontally. Using it as a foothold, he had already arrived on the mountain to the side. He wanted to circle around the back of the Green Vine Mountain and see if there was a gap in the mountain that allowed him to enter. By now, the sky had already darkened. Winter nights had always been extremely long, so the darkness was beneficial to Li Qingshan's movements. It would be even better if there was some wind and snow. Perhaps the heavens really were doing what he wanted. Before long, snow began to fall. Li Qingshan concealed his aura, but when he arrived behind the mountain, he was slightly taken aback. A tiny village sat in the valley, glowing with warm, flickering light. Was there actually a village built beside a place where cultivators cultivated? However, Li Qingshan came from a village. Regular villages, or even small cities, should have been shrouded in darkness at this time, just to save some oil and candles. The town was packed with people. People flowed to and fro. It was extremely lively. It was extremely unusual for there to be such a peaceful place in the midst of the cold mountains. When Li Qingshan approached a little closer, he became even more surprised, as there was not a single ordinary person walking about in the town. They were all cultivators. Li Qingshan had never seen so many cultivators gathered together in his life. Although most of them were at the second, third, and fourth layer, they were still cultivators after all. Were they all qi practitioners from the Green Vine Mountain? Li Qingshan immediately shook his head. There were probably several hundred qi practitioners here. The Green Vine Mountain definitely did not have that many qi practitioners, and the people on the streets all wore different attires. Their clothes all carried different emblems. They did not come from the same sect. And at a closer glance, many qi practitioners were like peddlers, setting up carpets on the side of the street and calling for customers loudly. They did not possess the dignity of qi practitioners at all. Li Qingshan's curiosity immediately rose to an uncontrollable level. He knocked the bamboo basket on his back. What do you think? Do you want to take a look? The bamboo basket seemed simple, but there was a thick blanket inside. Little and sat in there leisurely, leaning against a silk pillow as she read a Buddhist scripture that Li Qingshan found boring with great interest. Let's go take a look. Her reply was very concise. How could she not understand what Li Qingshan was feeling right now? Li Qingshan emerged from the dark corner and made his way towards the village. However, he remained vigilant at all times. He had been scammed by far too many Qi practitioners in the past. He had claimed the lives of many Qi practitioners as well, so he was even more vigilant towards his own kind than towards the underground demons. When he set foot in the village, everything was just as peaceful as before. Everyone was doing what they were doing. There were far fewer people who paid attention to his unusually large stature than in the regular streets. Li Qingshan's huge stature still attracted a lot of attention. Sir, do you want to take a look at the fine golden silk used to sew robes? It's only 3 spiritual stones for a tael. Li Qingshan declined with a smile. He turned around and saw a young second-layer Qi practitioner calling out loudly from outside a house. A 5th-layer Qi practitioner will be explaining the essence of the innate method of practicing Qi. It'll only cost a spiritual stone. A spiritual stone will save you 3 years. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I won't wait for more. Li Qingshan instinctively pricked up his ears. The small house was surrounded by formations. No matter how good his hearing was, he would definitely not be able to hear what the people inside were saying. 2 first-layer Qi practitioners were discussing at the door whether they should go in or not. Chapter 213. Li Qingshan basically struggled to believe his eyes. He had already considered many possible situations that Yu Zijian could face, such as carrying several hundred kilograms of firewood as she trudged along a snow-covered mountain path, or gazing in the direction of her home in worry. As for her father, Yu Shuquang, he had probably imagined it to be 10 times more severe than Li Qingshan. The sacred church, however, in reality, not only did Yu Zijian not suffer at all, but she even smiled happily instead. She strolled through the streets happily with a few Qi practitioners. There were both men and women, some strong and some weak, but they all wore green robes with green vines embroidered on their collars and sleeves. Li Qingshan had seen caretaker Lu before, so he knew this was the uniform of the Green Vine Mountain. Yu Zijian stood among them. Although she was not exactly the moon that everyone revolved around, he could tell that everyone liked her very much. They introduced the various strange goods on the streets to her in a friendly manner. Apart from the fact that her 2 buns had become the hovering void bun that was more in line with female cultivators, she basically did not change at all. She did not seem like she had been bullied no matter what. Yu Zijian sensed the gaze and turned around. She saw Li Qingshan's burly figure that stood out from the crowd with a single glance. Her mouth widened in surprise before turning into joy and joy. She called out, "Niu Juxia." She attracted the attention of everyone in the market. She jogged over to Li Qingshan. "Why have you come? Where's my father? Has he come?" As she said that, she looked around Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan said, "Your father hasn't come. I've come to see you. Are you all right?" As long as he was not blind, he could tell that she was fine. Yep. Yu Zijian nodded. "Zijian, is this your friend?" The Qi practitioners walked over as well. The person in the lead was a young man at the 6th layer. He asked in confusion. Yu Zijian glanced at Li Qingshan first, as if she was confirming that she could call herself his friend. Seeing how he did not object, she smiled boldly. "Yeah." With that, she glanced at him again to see whether he would become angry or not. The sacred church, how could Li Qingshan turn down becoming friends with a cute girl like that? Yu Zijian introduced them to each other. Only then did Li Qingshan learn that the leading 6th-layer Qi practitioner was called Mu Zhizong. Although he seemed rather modest, he gave off a faint sense of superiority. This was not just a sense of superiority from his strength, but also the pride from his sect. The 3 fellow disciples beside him gave Li Qingshan the same feeling to some extent. This sense of superiority was not a bad thing for their sections. Instead, it was a good thing. It demonstrated that they had a very high recognition of the Green Vine Mountain, which was why they took pride in being from the Green Vine Mountain. It was not only did it not as bad, but it also proved that it was to say. And chi and it to say and said, it and said, one and, you said? To say, they and he. Mu Jizong's heart skipped a beat. He said in surprise, "Don't tell me you're the Niu Juxia who threw Song Ming over the wall in a single move?" Li Qingshan smiled in tacit agreement. He knew that Song Ming was the so-called senior brother Song. News sure spread quickly. Little did he know that even though the three mountains were allies, they were also competitors. The scandals between their disciples would always spread the fastest. Otherwise, Lu Fengrui would not have come to the proud sword manor so quickly. The disciples immediately felt deep respect towards Li Qingshan. His face that was as dark as the bottom of a pot revealed a white, toothy smile. It seemed to be filled with unfathomable depth. The only female disciple, Qing Jeli, asked curiously, "May I ask which mountain you cultivate on, sir? What's your cultivation right now?" Li Qingshan smiled. "I was born with tremendous strength, and I happened to obtain a body-tempering cultivation method in the mountains. In terms of practicing qi, I'm nowhere near as good as you, Sir Mu. Independent cultivator, body tempering." They quickly concluded these two phrases from what Li Qingshan had said, and their attitudes changed once again. They recovered the slight sense of superiority that disciples of orthodox sects possessed. Body tempering was the same as external martial arts in the Jianghu. It would always be looked down upon. Of course, being able to practice both internal and external martial arts was another matter. Li Qingshan was clearly not one of them. Independent cultivators who did not belong to any sects or clans were like weeds. They were often pressured and beaten up by the people of sects and clans. Although Li Qingshan was large and tall, he had already begun to feel inferior in their hearts. In particular, Mu Jizong's displeasure towards Yu Zijian's closeness with Li Qingshan had basically vanished completely. This guy's strength is not weak, but he's just a brute. If he can't reach Qi practitioner, what's the use of strength no matter how strong he is? And he's so ugly. I've underestimated myself by treating him as an opponent. Li Qingshan could clearly sense the many changes in their emotions. His smile did not change, and he sighed slightly over the fickleness of the world. He did not take it to heart. Sucking up to those in power had always been human nature, so there was nothing to be displeased about. However, this was all because Li Qingshan was strong enough, and he was confident enough. Otherwise, it would be unavoidable for him to develop some ill feelings. A person's breadth of mind had always been directly related to their strength. When weaker people tried to act like they were broad-minded, it would often just be to comfort themselves. I've come to visit her in her father's place. She was forcefully taken away by a senior brother surnamed Lu. Who knows how worried her father is? Li Qingshan's voice carried a vague sense of questioning. This child was simple-minded, but he had to stand up for her. You're talking about senior brother Lu? Master has already punished him. The young man furrowed his brows slightly. He was slightly displeased by Li Qingshan's questioning. Li Qingshan became even more surprised. Although he had only seen caretaker Lu once, he should be a powerful qi practitioner who had split open a sea of qi. He wondered just how this girl managed to make the sect master of the Green Vine City punish his beloved disciple for her. Li Qingshan could tell these people were not unreasonable. He glanced at a tea house on the side. It was quiet and elegant inside, and when he saw the signboard on the door, it read, "Tranquil Tea House." It really did live up to its name. Sure enough, there were not a lot of people inside. It was very tranquil. This isn't a place to talk. Please come in and have some tea. I'd like to ask Zijian a few things in her father's place. This was the first time Yu Zijian had heard him directly refer to her by name. She found it strange, but when she thought about how he had specially come to visit her for her sake, her heart warmed up. Her ears reddened first, and she pinched the corner of her clothes. She had no idea what to say. All she thought was that Niu Juxia really was a good person. This was the first time Mu Jizong had seen Yu Zijian behave like this. He felt jealous for some reason. He asked with a strange smile, "You want to invite us here to drink tea?" After receiving confirmation from Li Qingshan, he exchanged glances with his fellow disciples beside him. They all smiled strangely. Li Qingshan entered the tea house and understood why they were smiling. He also understood why the tea house was so tranquil. There were a few bamboo signs hanging on the west wall, with the prices written on them. Even the cheapest tea cost 7 spiritual stones, while the most expensive ones cost over 20 spiritual stones. Which Qi practitioner would not buy pills for cultivation or talismans to protect themselves with spiritual stones? Instead, they would drink a pot of tea. There were no waiters or waiters in the tea house. There was only a single owner, a skinny old man with gray hair. He was also the tea master of the tea house. When Li Qingshan and the others entered, they did not even raise their heads. A few curtains were drawn, separating a few private rooms. The people inside seemed to be talking, but there was no sound at all. Clearly, this was the effect of the formation. Li Qingshan said, "TSK, this tea sure isn't cheap." Yu Zijian pulled Li Qingshan away. "It's too expensive. Let's go somewhere else. There's a steamed bun store on the corner of the street. They used the meat of a 3-colored deer as the filling." The 3 disciples of the Green Vine Mountain chimed in with smiles. "Yeah, there's nothing special about this tea." Their expressions were as expected. Independent cultivators were basically synonymous with poverty. They did not even have enough money to buy pills, so where would they get the money to buy the famous tea from the tranquil tea house? Of course, they did not have any ill intentions, but watching a bumpkin make a fool of himself was always a delightful matter. It was obviously impossible for the group of people to just leave with their tails between their legs. At a time like this, a generous and forthright man obviously had to come and save the situation. Mu Zhizong said, "The tranquil tea house is extremely renowned in the cultivation world. Being able to enjoy a cup of tea from there is basically the greatest enjoyment in life. Since you're here, you might as well take things as you can. Since you're Zijian's friend, I should be the one to treat you since you've come to the Green Vine Mountain." Li Qingshan did not even know about the renowned tranquil tea house, so he was obviously extremely ignorant. Cheng Jieli glanced at Mu Zhizong affectionately. "Then we'll have to make senior brother pay today. Zijian, why don't you thank senior brother? Let alone someone from a small place like this, even the few of us haven't tasted something so extravagant before." Only then did Li Qingshan sense Cheng Jieli's hostility towards Yu Zijian. She was clearly saying that Yu Zijian was a bumpkin just like him. This was just how troublesome humans were. The hostility of demons was on their bodies, but the hostility of humans was in their hearts. However, Yu Zijian just happened to be unable to understand what he was trying to say. She said in embarrassment, "Thank you, senior brother Mu. Actually, I'd like to try what such expensive tea tastes like too. Let's drink the cloud mist tea." The cloud mist tea was the cheapest type of tea. Naive and straightforward women were already rare, but it was even rarer for her to be kind and considerate. She seemed to possess the best aspects of her father and mother. The more he spent time with her, the more he found out about her adorableness and preciousness. Mu Zhizong's gaze became gentler. "Zijian, we'll drink whatever you want." Cheng Jieli's smile stiffened slightly, while the gazes of the 2 other disciples towards her seemed to contain a hint of mockery. Li Qingshan snickered inside. This was like a clash between a third-rate master and a great Qi practitioner. As soon as they clashed, Cheng Jieli had suffered a crushing defeat. Cheng Jieli's appearance was not bad, but she lacked the kind of charm that could move people's hearts. It was just like when it came to the same song, some people could sing it in a normal manner. Although there was nothing wrong with it, it did not matter even if they did not listen to it, while others could sing it to the heart. Just when Mu Zhizong wanted to greet the tea brewer, he was stopped by Li Qingshan. He grinned. "We might come from a small place, but we can still afford a sip of tea. Isn't that right, Zijian?" Only then did Yu Zijian suddenly realize what Cheng Jieli was trying to say just now. She frowned. Exactly. She was annoyed inside. "You can look down on me, but how can you look down on Yo Juxia?" Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks. your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.